confidants. Welcome, my sweet, accessible, empowered, educated confidants. Welcome back to another episode of Confidently Insecure. This is the podcast where we are absolutely sure we don't know everything. I am your host, Kelsey Darragh, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest this week because her name is CHELSIE Hill. That's her last name. She is the CEO and founder of Roulette LA, a Los Angeles-based wheelchair dance team that empowers women with disabilities to live boundlessly and shift perspective through dance and representation of like female empowerment. And yay, CHELSIE, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for doing this. I got to just jump right in and ask you, how did your love for dance begin?
So it actually started at a very young age. So I actually started dancing when I was 3 and I started competing nationally and regionally when I was 5 years old. So my passion for dance started at a very young age. And honestly, it was something that I felt like was the only thing I was really good at. You know, I when I started competing nationally, and I would always bring home a trophy. You know, that was like something that I always, I love doing. So I started dancing very young, and that's where my passion kind of grew.
I love that. And what is it about dance that makes you feel so good?
I think for dance, it's always been the one thing that I can go to when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm confused, when I just want to have an outlet that maybe I don't know how to explain myself verbally, but physically I can I just dance it out, So dance has always been the one thing that has saved me, I think, from so much, even before, my life-changing incident, and I think just growing up, that was the one thing that I could go towards that was mine, that I didn't feel like anyone could take away from me.
That's so important and also awesome to have such a passion at a young age that you've continued to do till now. I feel like that's such a rare thing to have that lasts as long as it does. I want to talk about this life-changing incident if you're comfortable with it, and how that sort of changed your pathway or maybe existing thoughts about what your dance journey looked like.
Yeah. So, I was a senior in high school and I was out at a party with friends. We were all drinking, and long story short, someone was like, "Hey, we're leaving. Does anyone need a ride?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I need to go home. I have work in the morning." I ran out to the first car I saw. I got into the back seat, and long story short, we ended up hitting a tree head on, going about 35 miles per hour. And my driver was drunk. And I don't visually remember anything. I remember the different feelings I went through that in that moment. I remember feeling like, the helicopter, because I was life flighted to the nearest trauma center. And I remember all those different emotions. But for me, I really started remembering a lot more about 2 weeks after the accident.
Oh, wow.
So I had a 7.5-hour back surgery, and I was labeled as disabled and at the age of 17, and, told that I was never going to walk again. And the doctor came in, I remember very clearly, about 2 weeks after the accident, and he was like, "So do you have any questions for me?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, why can't I feel my legs?"
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and why can't I feel my legs? Because, my family and my friends were just saying "Oh, it's the medicine, and he said, "Well, you have a spinal cord injury and you're never going to walk again."
Wow.
And I was like, spinal cord injury?
Wow.
So that's kind of, where my whole life was flipped upside down. And first thing I said was "Well, I don't just walk, I'm a dancer." And he was like, "I'm so sorry, that's not possible." And then my second question was, "Well, can I still have kids if I'm paralyzed?" And he was like, "Well, you can talk to your parents about that." So pediatric ICU. But yeah, my first question was about dance.
Wow. There's so much there to break down, and I don't want to live in the trauma of what that experience was like for you. But the fact that it just goes to show that dance was your number one thought and your love. And can you tell me about the journey of realizing that you very much fucking can dance again. Thank you very much, doctor. But like, what was that process? I'm sure it didn't just happen overnight, but what did that look like growing back into and grappling with that thing you love?
You know, I think for everyone that gets a spinal cord injury or, you know, life-changing incident, I think, you know, we all kind of think like, oh, it's temporary. You know, for so long, you learn that you break a bone, it heals, and you go back to your normal life, right? Like that's just like the cycle of what's supposed to happen. So me thinking, okay, I broke my back. Okay, I'm going to heal and then I'll go back to my normal life. I thought that this was temporary, you know? So while I was in like rehab and learning how to like get dressed and get in and out of a wheelchair, like I remember my dad walked in, he goes, hey, he had his computer. He goes, I want you to see something. And I was laying in my hospital bed and he set the computer down. He goes, watch this. And he played this video of this woman dancing on YouTube in her wheelchair for Snoop Dogg. And I was like, this is cool, you know? And I remember like my wheels started turning and I was like, I would do this differently. That looks weird. And I was so against it because I was like, I'm going to get out of here. My back's going to heal and I'll go back and I'll dance with my legs.
Sure.
So the journey to finding and re-falling in love with dance was, I would say, pretty quick, but also a long time, you know, like I had to mourn over time the life as a dancer that I thought I was going to have. I had to mourn what my life period was going to look like. And I had to re-fall in love with dance. There, you know, I'll share this one moment with you. I auditioned for a fully able-bodied dance team.
Yes.
I was the only wheelchair user. And I made the dance team. And I remember we were practicing one time. And I remember looking in the mirror and I was off to the side practicing and they were all together. And I just started bawling because I was like, oh my gosh, like I look so different. So it was definitely a long journey, but I think that journey and every moment and every low I hit with it made me a stronger dancer and made my passion for dance so much stronger.
Wow. Yeah. I wonder, I mean, I relate to the idea of having to like mourn your former self. I had a nerve injury during a surgery that completely changed my life, and having to everything changed, like let alone the passions and having to figure out how to literally talk again when the nerve damage occurred in my face. I was like, that's fucking ironic that the universe gave me the nerve injury in my face, which is like literally what I use to do for a living. And do you find any like irony or perhaps like purpose in the pain of, again, like being a dancer and then having to learn again to be a dancer in a different way than you imagined?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, for me, I always wanted to do something in the dance world. I didn't really know what it was. I was like, oh, maybe I'll own a dance studio one day. I don't know. Maybe I'll do this. And for me now, you know, running an all women's wheelchair dance team, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon, but like, I feel like the universe kind of was like, this is where you're going to go. And I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And, you know, I feel like whatever path I was supposed to go down, I feel like the wheels gave me like a very direct path, you know? And I think what's interesting is a lot of people look at me, you know, you can't tell on the screen, but I'm a wheelchair user, you know, and like you can't see my wheelchair, but people will look at me and go, look at all the things she probably cannot do when they have no idea about all the things that I can do and all the things that I have done. And how my wheelchair and my disability has catapulted me into this amazing world to showcase disability, you know, like there's always a negative in every positive. There's always a positive in every negative, you know, and it's really just the mindset that you choose to look at that is going to make or break you, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's not lost on me too, that I feel your positivity and like choice in choosing positivity. And I'm sure it wasn't always that way. Like something I love about your Instagram and the posts you make are really showing like, hey, I wasn't always this way. Like your brand is very positive and encouraging and uplifting. But I think it would feel like for anyone unrelatable if you didn't share those more negative experiences that like changed your brain literally to say, I have a choice here about how I play with the cards that I was dealt. And I wonder how you got to that mindset, right? And you talk about that moment with the able-bodied dance team that you felt so different. And did you feel like it was a series of being, I don't know, maybe treated differently or seen differently that made you go, okay, fuck this, I'm going to make my own thing? Or can you talk a little bit about what inspired the Rollettes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that really inspired this whole thought of a wheelchair dance team was my passion and my drive was I wanted friends.
Yeah.
I wanted to find other people. I was like, there's no way I'm the only person in the world that made a mistake, got in the car with a drunk driver that's now paralyzed. I can't be the only girl that's like this.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, luckily I was on a reality show like right when I was newly injured. And then that gave me a platform to reach out to girls on social media. Yes. And I was like, hey, you want to come and like dance in my hometown? And my goal with that was to show my hometown that like, I'm not alone. Like other people are also paralyzed. Like there's more of us, you know? So that was really like the root of starting it was I wanted friends and I wanted to show my community that like you could have a great life still, you know? And like, I'm not the only one. So that was really the passion behind it. And, you know, when I started this idea 10 years ago, it was really just to like have friends. And then we put out a video online and then we got like our first gig, and then we got asked to do like a fair, and then like a parade and little things like that. So it just kind of exploded, you know, but it purely was just to find friends.
So you set out this call of like, hey, I want to start this thing. Did you find that people were coming from all over the country? Was it where you were based and then moved? Like, how do you get everyone together when not only putting together a team is challenging, but then you have to add like the physical challenges that it takes to get all of those people in one team and experience?
So in the beginning, I would do like little fundraisers. And I would do like free car wash, donate what you can, or like, you know, little fundraisers. And really the logistics of it was I reached out to a few girls, and then we started this like dance team. It was called like Team Hot Wheels.
Yes. I love it.
And then I had a nonprofit with my dad, and then we like merged the two, and we were like a nonprofit dance team. And then like, I was like, I have this vision. I want to move to LA, I want to take dance classes. And I had this every year. I was like, man, like my vision, like what I want is I want to see a ballroom full of women dancing in chairs. Like that's what I want. Cause that was my background. I was from the competitive dance world, you know? So I had this vision, and for me, it was really hard because it was a nonprofit and I couldn't raise money. It was so hard. And I was like, you know what? Don't want to have a nonprofit. So I turned into like a business, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but,
but I'm doing it.
I'm going to figure it out. But along the way, I met so many amazing people, like choreographers, and met my assistant. I met a manager, like, and they all kind of came in. They're like, I get what you're doing. And I remember my manager was like, what do you want? You know? And I was like, I want a ballroom full of women dancing in chairs. And he's like, all right, this was 2017. He goes, get 100 women, come. And I was like, I don't even know 100 people. Like, let alone people are going to come to LA and dance. That next year in 2018, we had 115 women and children from 12 countries.
Wow. What?
So we went from 30 to 115. So
holy shit.
That journey and like getting people together. I mean, that's just like our Rolex Experience, which is our camp, but the actual dance team, you know, getting us together and getting all of us in the same room, or even just going out to dinner, like heads turn, like they turn. They're like, wow, these girls. Yeah. So yeah, it's fun.
And how does that make you feel, where you went from this mindset of I'm crying because I feel so different to like, we're rolling through, bitches, watch the fuck out, look at us, see what we're doing. Like, can you talk to me about that shift? Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm human and I still have my bad days. You know, yesterday was my 12-year anniversary of this accident. Like, I still get emotional. And I think now I just get more emotional about that young girl that went through this like traumatic injury, you know, but getting to the point where I am now, you know, it's moments like rolling through a McDonald's drive-through, 10 girls in wheelchairs, and we're like, we have 4 wheels, like we're in a drive-through. Like, you know, it's moments like that like
really make me feel like I'm not alone. You know, like I live in a world of, you know, fully able bodies. Like there's majority of people out there are able bodies, but like in my world, a lot of my friends are women with disabilities, and it just makes me feel not so alone. And I think there's so much power behind that has really made me feel like if I'm not alone, then I can have a productive and you know, successful life.
Yeah, hell yeah. I know that you were recently married, right? Yes. She's a married woman. How was running a business, getting married, being a social media star, working, like how did that all pan out for you? Was it like a crazy time? Was it easier because of COVID? Like walk me through it.
I mean, running a business with your best friends is hard in general.
Yeah.
Hard in general. Oh, sorry.
Did I lose you? Oh no, you're
speaking of, my husband is calling. Sorry.
He heard us talking about him. Yeah.
I know, seriously. But running a business with your best friends is hard in general. And then adding on the extra layer of like planning a wedding and getting married and then like honeymoon, it's like all at once happening. But I will say, you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have.
Ooh, girl.
And I feel like I've built this like strength within myself that like I can take on a lot, but I don't know. I feel like that quote always just like sticks with me. And you know, running the company and doing social media and going to dance classes and creating content. And then like, also now I'm married and like, what's the next step there? Like it's been, I think I've just kind of learned to just roll with the punches, you know, and you just kind of go with it.
Yeah. And it makes me also think about like, what challenges have you faced in terms of like having a wheelchair dance team that like normal able-bodied maybe dance companies or dance competitions aren't thinking about? Like, have you, I'm sure it's not have you had to, but how have you had to self-advocate for your team in terms of like inclusion and in that process?
Yeah. I mean, I will say like, I've really dealt a lot with people and companies not taking me seriously. You know, in the very beginning, I got a lot of, oh, that's so cute. You have a wheelchair dance team. And I'm like, cute.
Bitch, like, we're hot as shit.
Yeah, like, please. Like, well, also, too, like, my dreams, that's not cute. Like, don't pity me, you know? Like, and it was more of like a pity sort of thing. And I'm like, no, there's a need for this. Like, if I need it, I know there's more people that need it. So I think, like, my struggle that I have faced through, you know, running company and being a woman with a disability and the CEO and like, you know, all these different hats that I wear, like I've learned and I'm trying to break down that stereotype that like a CEO doesn't just look one way. You know, it's not just like one vision of what a CEO is supposed to look like. A CEO can look like any of us. Yeah. You know, and we can run our own business and we can be successful. And I've just had a lot of hurdles that I've had to like jump over, and people that I've had to what's the word? Convince that Rolex Experience, our women's empowerment weekend, is worth it. And I think what I've done with the strength of all of the girls that are with us and all of our dance team members and the people that work for us is we've really created our own lane. You know, there's no other dance or women's empowerment weekend for specifically women with disabilities in the world. Wow. You know, so we've really paved our own way, and we're kind of creating the like book of how to, you know, like we're just figuring it out.
And if you don't do it, who the hell is going to? And I love that you're just like, yeah, we're going to figure it out as we go. And I just know I want to do this thing and we're going to make it happen. And that's exactly what you're doing. I'd love to ask, like, for me, I've struggled with the word disability the same way I think like the word fat was struggled with for people that are like, fat is not a bad word and it's not a feeling, and it's luckily, I think, changing in the zeitgeist the way that we experience that word. And personally, I feel that way about disability, where I'm like, I don't look like I have a disability. I don't like, you can't see anything about me that gives away that I have a disability. And then there's the flip side of that where it's like, no, you fucking own the word. We take it back. Like we make people see that it's not a bad word. And do you ever run into that push and pull where it's like you are able to do so much and like you've got so much going on and like you're booked and busy, sis, that did you ever struggle with that word? Because I just like personally need help.
Yeah. I mean, I think, being on a reality show and then like being forced into this like limelight, like I really struggled with the word disability for so long because I think it's because the way society framed it. And I blame society for that, but I do and I don't, because we live in a world where like now we are in charge of what we want people to see because of this. Like we have the power just like TV now. Like, you know what I mean? Like we can blow up as much as we want. And so I feel like, we did a whole campaign this past year about being disabled and blank and taking, like you said, taking back that word and owning that word and saying, I'm disabled and a boss. I'm disabled and a writer, like, and owning that and putting that first. And like, I just feel like we have the power to take it back and give it a better understanding, because if you think back to like what we see on TV and stuff, people with disabilities, they're not seen.
Right.
They're just not. Right. There's no education around people with physical or invisible disabilities. Like there is no education, and there's a lack of that in so many different areas. But with social media these days, you have every way to educate. If you're passionate about something, get on the phone and talk about it. Like you can. And that's what I love about, the day that we're living in, is you can do whatever you want.
I mean, you hit the nail so on the head with social media. Like that is exclusively where I get my disability content. Like I don't have it in my media, in my regular life. I don't get it from doctors. I don't really get it from my friends or able-bodied friends that at least are talking about it. It really is my feeds and my timelines that I'm learning everything about.
Exactly.
But speaking about go ahead.
I was just going to say too, like if you're listening to this or watching this, like, and you're like, well, I hate social media, then change what you're following. Like the algorithm shows you what it thinks that you want to see because of what you're viewing. So if you don't want to see negative things, if you don't want to see, women that are like stick skinny and it makes you feel bad, like, I get that. That. I don't have a body like the, Victoria's Secret models. Like, I get that insecurity. Like we all have that, but like, then change what you're thinking, change what you're seeing, and start following people that inspire and motivate you and make you feel good. Like it's not, social media is not a bad thing. It's all in what you're following and what you're actually like viewing. Oof. The algorithm is going to change if you change it, Yes.
The power back to the viewer. I love that. It's so true. Like I made a conscious effort years ago to say like, I'm done following traditional European beauty standard things as my main source of juiciness and goodness, and filling my soul up with so much more, unfortunately, diverse content or underrepresented and minority content, which brings me to my question of asking about the empowerment and education aspect of what you do and like these women's weekends. And I love in your mission statement, it's like shifting perspective. Like what can someone who's maybe never been to something like that expect in terms of like what they'll learn and be, I don't want to say like forced to reckon with, but I imagine that you come feeling a certain way and you leave feeling like empowered as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. We started it as just like a girls' weekend, and like our activity was dancing. And I've learned that I don't want it to just be about dance. So now when you come to Rolex Experience, yes, you'll take 4 dance classes if you want, or you can go also see 4 panels. And we have a panel this year about advocacy. We have a panel about motherhood and disability. What is it like to be a mother? Wow. Whether you're giving birth naturally or you're adopting, like how is that? Or being boundless mentally, physically, or emotionally. And then also a whole panel about game changers. Like we have a Paralympian, we have Ali Stroker, who's the first wheelchair user to be on Broadway. Like we have amazing people that are a part of it. And then we also have our pajama party and our like our awards night and a pool party and, you know, a lot of fun stuff. But, you know, there's a lot that you can do at Rolex Experience. But I think my favorite part is all the stuff that you can't show on video.
Right.
It's the conversations that, you know, girls come up to me and they're like, thank you so much for doing this, because I finally found like I have friends. And I remember this one girl came up to me and she, you know, was crying to me and she's like, Chelsea, it's because of you. I can go on a trip with another wheelchair user. Like I finally found friends, and I was bawling. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's when I realized what we're doing is so much more than dance. It's so much more than just like, you know, making cool dance videos and stuff like that. It's actually changing women's lives, and not just women, but also bringing in kids with disabilities and showing them like, here's your role model, go talk to them, learn from them, like, you know, and mentors coming in. It's just it's transformed into something so much bigger than I thought I ever
I'm like, can this be a year-long thing? Does it just have to be a weekend thing? Like, is the goal to make it like forever?
I mean, the goal is to make it bigger. You know, the goal is like maybe a convention center one day. Maybe it's not just women. Maybe it's all disabilities. Like, I don't know. You know, I feel like the opportunities are endless, and I'm just kind of going with the flow every year. And my goal purely is to just shift perspective through dance. Like that's my passion, but you know, dance, you know, not everyone wants to be a professional dancer, but for me, I'm like, if that's one part of it, you know, but how can we also educate or like use our voice through mainstream media or acting, like, you know, there's a lot.
No, I mean, you hit a big piece of conversation that happens in the entertainment industry about like, are we hiring people with actual disability to play? Whew, that's a whole book we can open and read on. I am curious, and please correct my language if I'm saying this incorrectly. Is there a difference to the way you approach sort of healing through dance with someone who, and again, tell me if I'm saying this correctly, is someone who was born with a disability and born understanding like the accessibility of wheelchair, to someone who, like yourself, it happened later in life, and not only later, but at a very like transformative age, you know, 17, Jesus Christ. Like I was just not the same person I am today, but is there a difference in approach that you see happening with what you teach and how you empower and shift perspective?
I mean, honestly, I feel like dance doesn't see disability. I feel like literally if you want to dance, anyone can dance. And so I don't think it matters if you were born with a disability versus had an injury at whatever age. I think like whoever, I've seen so many amazing dancers that have been born with a disability that I'm like, oh my God, they can do so much, you know, like, but yeah, I don't think there's like really any difference at all. I think what, you know, the kind of the barrier that I want to break down is like, you know, to be a roulette, you don't, it doesn't have to be a traumatic injury that happened to you. I'd love to have like more girls be a roulette, you know, and we put out like an application. So we're probably going to be adding more girls to the family. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any real like difference at all. It's just,
You so beautifully segued into my next question, which was going to be about like, what is the process of becoming a roulette? Like, what does that look like? Because I've seen those like ESPN behind the cheerleading dance squad thing that I'm like, that looks intense.
You know, so every year has been like really different. And so we're really trying to put into place like an actual outline. So I've had like an audition process in the past, and then like it's been kind of like a, hey, are you available? Do you want to do this? Like kind of conversational kind of application, I guess you could say. But this year we actually did a full-blown application process. They have to learn choreography, submit a video question, answer, like all that. So actually in the next week, we are going through all of it and picking out girls that we feel like would be great for it. But we're really looking for dancers because our girls, the world's opening up, thank God. The world is opening up again. And so some of our girls are actually performing for the Boston Celtics next week. And then like some of us are going to be, you know, holding down the fort here. And we have a big convention that we're putting on that we're dancing at. So then girls go like overnight Yeah, it's a lot,
Wow.
but we're really looking for more dancers. That's like
Wow.
our goal. So
Wow. Yeah. It seems like a complex process of like, do you have to filter out like not only location, but type of dance? Like what do people who maybe want to be involved with Rolettes need to know in terms of like skill level, what they should be working on?
I mean, to be a roulette, you really have to have the time.
Sure.
Really, like it's a lot of time. You have to want to be on social media and be okay in front of the camera, be comfortable with talking. And then also to be passionate about something, you know, like be passionate about makeup, dance, fashion, fitness, whatever it is. I want women who are passionate about what they believe in, part of the company. So, and I think every year Rolettes kind of evolves into like this next version of itself. And every year we just get better and better. So I'm really excited to bring on more girls this year and just grow the family. But yeah, dance is obviously like a big factor of it, but also too, having your own thing too, I think is really important.
Yeah. I want to know like what are the most commonly asked questions you get as like a CEO and founder?
Ooh, that's a good question. Ooh, I don't think it's more so like what questions I get as a CEO or founder. I think it's more like common questions I get of like, you know, how do you drive or how do you like things like that, like more around like my disability. But yeah.
Interesting. Do you get asked questions like, let's say you're working with like someone that's going to hire the team or like do a performance, like do you have to give them sort of your standard of like morality of like treatment, or do you have like clauses you go over with people, or do you find that companies are just so like excited to work with you guys that they kind of can make anything happen?
I mean, I think there's like a lot of different levels to that. As far as like the dancing, you know, there's a lot of questions that we ask where we're like, okay, how long is the performance? Are we dancing with able bodies? Are we bringing our own choreography? You know, how many practices do we need to have? Like, there's a lot of behind the scenes with that. But then, you know, if I'm doing a brand deal with, you know, a big brand, there's like all of those logistics. But then also we just did a huge campaign with Aerie, which was amazing. And the Rolettes did that. So that was a Rolettes, you know, great opportunity because it wasn't just showcasing one person with a disability. It was showcasing multiple women with disabilities with different diagnoses and different levels of injury. So I think with that question, I think there's just a lot of like layers to it, but I'm really proud of the company that we've built because we've been very universal in the opportunities that have come towards us, that we have been able to like make them work because our goal is to shift perspective. So whether that's on the Boston Celtics performance stage or in Aerie or on Ellen or, you know, with TD Bank doing a tour, like, or Kelly Clarkson music video, whatever we've done, we've always tried to stay to our mission, and that's shifting perspective. So
I think that's such like a positive thing that you've decided to include in your mission statement, because I'm assuming there's a lot of emotional labor, like even just the fact that you said so many of the questions you get are more around like your disability and injury. And I have to imagine that gets fucking annoying after a certain amount of time, or like, have you fully embraced it and been like, this is part of it, and like whatever I have to do to break stigma and taboo, like you're the woman for the job?
Well, I think that also goes back to like social media, because I think before we were, you know, really advocating and really showcasing our life on social media, a lot of the questions were like, how do you do this? How do you do that? How's this? How's that? And when like now they could just look at my Instagram or look at the Rolette's Instagram and kind of get those answers, I feel like that has kind of shifted what the questions are. And now the questions are more like, what do the Rolettes do? Who are the Rolettes? What's Rolex Experience? Why did you start it? That kind of thing, which is really nice because I don't mind. I think I've always looked at the questions that I get around my disability as an opportunity to just educate all of the people that are going to hear here. You know, like everyone that's going to listen to this and watch this probably will have no idea who I am. So to me, I don't ever get like annoyed with it or like because I'm like, this is just another opportunity that I can educate people and show like, yes, I can drive. Yes, I can have an amazing husband, and I can probably have babies one day. I don't know. Like I can talk about those things where maybe these people that are listening would never see me on social media.
Yeah. And I think what you've said there is such like an important thing to highlight, which is that with the content you guys are making and even just like on your personal Instagram and brand, you have the power of what you're putting out there. You're like, here's the questions I feel like answering, or like, here's the way I'm going to explain it to you. It's not someone just like cornering you at the office or like in a grocery store. Like it's got to be empowering too for other women with disability to see the way that you're deciding to write your narrative to the world. Like, do you feel like, do you feel like that's changing with the way media is showcasing disability and like the power you have over it now?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always work to be done. Obviously, there's always work to be done in all aspects of like minority groups. Yeah. But I think social media has been a huge blessing where it's given the microphone back to us and been like, well, if you want to see more of it, then do it yourself. And like, sometimes people look at that as like really intimidating. But for me and the Roulettes, we're like, all right, let's go. Like, let's play. Let's show them what they need to see, or like, let's show them what we think is missing in the world. And I think that also like, and we can probably talk about this, but I think that also there's this like word around people with disabilities where people will go, oh, you're so inspiring. And there's a very interesting discussion in the community that I would love to talk to you about of like our community not liking that we are inspirational.
Go off, sis. Tell me.
I am inspired by my best friends. I'm inspired by the Rolettes. I'm inspired by Ali Stroker, who's the first wheelchair user to be on Broadway. They're an inspiration to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think what the average, person out there that doesn't know anyone with a disability, they would see me in a grocery store with a basket on my lap getting groceries. And as a newly injured person, they'll be like, oh, you're so inspiring. You're here. And I'm like,
I'm fucking grocery shopping.
Like, and I think we have to, as people with disabilities and people who don't have disabilities or don't know someone with a disability, we have to understand that there's two different types of inspiration. One is a pity inspiration. And the second one is actually genuinely inspired by someone, no matter what they look like, no matter what color their skin is, being inspired in that way. And I think I'm very thankful that people have said to me like, wow, you're such an inspiration. I'm like, wow, thanks. Cause there's a lot of shit I had to get where I am. And like, wow, like if I was a little girl and I had a disability, like I'd be inspired by me too. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I really want to start like changing that narrative of what it means to be an inspiration, because, getting my wheelchair out of the car, like, I guess that could inspire someone that doesn't really feel like waking up, or like opening up the curtains. Like, I guess that could be really inspiring to them, as long as it's not in like a pity way.
That's so important to highlight. And I think it's also important to highlight that like some people with disability don't want to be an inspiration. Like they're not trying, that's not their choice. Like you very much made a choice to be like, look at fucking all the shit I've overcome. Look at what I can do. Look at what I've done. Just disability or not is a huge, big deal. And some people aren't asking for that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that people say it also to make themselves feel better or more comfortable. They're not honestly meaning it. It's like, bitch, you don't even know me. I'm grocery out. How do you know that I'm not like a horrible person? Like there's nothing just about me.
Exactly. And I think that's where it comes. Some people, it comes from like a pity. But for me, like when I started, I didn't start Roulettes to inspire. I did not. I started purely because I needed something. I started because I wanted friends. I wanted to dance. And yes, Rolex Experience is like a really great event. And like, yes, it has turned into like this big thing, and I kind of didn't realize it was going to turn into it. But I think for me, I didn't start this to be an inspiration. I don't keep this going because I want to be an inspiration. I keep it going because I'm passionate about it. Rolex Experience is my passion project, but me getting groceries and someone feeling bad about themselves, that's like different.
And I'm so glad you brought that up. What do you what is, I mean, I know we kind of talked about like making the Rollettes like a bigger thing. That's like the goal, but what do you personally see for yourself in like the next 5-10 years? What's like the dream goal with not only dance and the Rollettes, but like personally, what do you want to keep doing in this industry, if you will?
Oh my gosh, that's a very interesting
You're like,
question.
I just got married. Leave me alone. I was so busy. I just did a lot of shit. Okay.
I mean, I think, for me personally, I really want to challenge myself to live more in the moment. I think that's like a big thing with just like being an entrepreneur is like you're always looking for the next best thing or the next thing that you're going to do. And I think, being on a big tour and then being on Ellen and being in music videos, like I forgot to live in the moment in that time where I was like, man, like I'm never going to get that feeling back of the first time I was on, a reality show or like, and I think for me personally, I want to keep practicing living in the moment. But as far as Roulette, and of course, I would love to see about like starting a family one day, like whenever that may be. And, but as far as Roulettes and Rolex Experience, my goal is to keep Rolex Experience being the largest women's empowerment weekend for women with disabilities. Like that's my goal. And whatever that may be, I think every year it might shift a little bit. And I would love to have, all disabilities one day. And maybe, who knows, maybe it's a co-ed event one day. I don't know. Whatever the world takes it into, I think we evolve as the world evolves. But yeah, that's kind of my goal. And I think that's like really it.
Hell yeah. I love that too. That's like a good note to end on of like, we all need to be more mindful. Okay. We all can appreciate like taking inventory and stock of all the things that we have done and living in the moment, and, you know, compare and despair affects everyone, and to remember to just live here and now. And I think that that's a good bow to put on this, Chelsea. But tell me, if anyone listening wants to find more out about you, where do you want to be found?
So you can check out Roulette on rollettesdance.com. We are on all social media platforms, Rolettes_LA. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And then you can find me on just CHELSIEHill.com. CHELSIE.
Oh, yeah. That's very important to note. It is CHELSIE, which is a way that people spell it. Yeah, listen, I've seen with Kelsey, it's been KELSEA, SIE. I mean, like, we don't discriminate here. Yeah. You're part of the fam. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea. Don't forget Confidants. All of that will be linked in the description below. Be sure to check out Chelsea and all the things that Rolettes are doing. And we will see you next week.